Hey guys, Danny here. I hope you're all doing well. Today I am reviewing an electric bike. This was sent to me by ENGWE. I hope I'm pronouncing their name properly. Please note they sent this product to me for free for review, and you'll find a link down in the description if you'd like to pick one of these up for yourself. Here you can see me testing out the front and seat suspension. So this doesn't have full rear suspension, it only has suspension on the seat, which I do think you can feel. It definitely makes up for not having any suspension on the rear, but I don't think you'll have the same experience as a full suspension bike. This also weighs in at about 34 kilos, so it's by no means a light bike. You can see I'm really struggling to lift it up here. The bike comes with a color LCD display. All of your controls for the bike are on the left hand side. These let you control which mode you're in. You can also control the lights on the bike from here too. On the right hand side you have your gear selector, which I had a lot of fun using and it felt good quality while riding, went into gear pretty quickly. You also have a half throttle on the right hand side. This is one of the cheaper ones I've seen on electric bikes before, so it doesn't feel super high quality, but it definitely gets the job done. And of course you have your bell so you can annoy people when you're riding. This bike is using fat tires, and on the back wheel here we can see the 250 watt motor as well as the disc brakes. This is using hydraulic disc brakes, which is good for this bike's price point, and also our kickstand. The rear mounted rack is rated to hold 25 kilos, but I did have my girlfriend ride on the back for a bit of fun and it didn't break. The front and rear lights look pretty good quality, and I would feel comfortable riding this bike at night as they seem bright enough for me. The rear brake light even lights up when you brake, which is a nice little extra touch. The 48 volt 16 amp hour battery is built into the bike's frame. You release it using this key as I'm showing you here. You can also charge the battery while it's in the bike using this little access point which is covered up. Once you take the battery out, you can also check its charge status using this button. And the charger goes green when it's fully charged. When the battery is fully drained, it will take approximately 6 hours to fully charge the battery. The bike turned up in a pretty huge box. It was shipped to me and it arrived very quickly from ENGWE, so the shipping experience was pretty good. I don't know if they did some kind of express shipping because they wanted me to get my review out quickly, or if it's the standard shipping you'll all receive, but it arrived very quickly, so I was impressed with that. It was packaged very nicely and I didn't notice any obvious damage or anything. It took a little while to remove all of the protection from the bike, but overall I thought it was packaged well. You also get this little box which has everything you need to put the bike together. A whole bunch of tools, spanners, Allen keys, a screwdriver. You get some additional cable ties when you're attaching the lights to the bike, so you can make the cables a little bit neater. You also get your charger as well. Putting the bike together is pretty straightforward. If you've put a bike together before, or an electric bike, you won't have any problems with this one. If it's your first time, the instructions can be a little bit hit and miss, but you will figure it out. It's pretty straightforward. There are a few occasions where you might need someone to hold a couple of bits, but other than that you should be good. The first thing you'll notice if you're not used to riding an electric bike or a slightly bigger bike like this one is the weight, and you feel it most when you're coming to a stop or doing sharp turns. As someone who's not really a super experienced rider, I would really call myself the average run-of-the-mill rider. I don't really ride very often. I found it okay. There was a few occasions where because of that weight, maybe you want to pull away or get away a little bit faster than you actually can. So that's one reason why I enabled throttle starts, which will be disabled by default. This bike will also come speed restricted, which is something you'll need to decide yourself if you want to de-restrict it. The gear system felt nice, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. There wasn't really like a long time between changing gears and they didn't feel too clunky. The gear system overall I quite enjoyed using, made for a pretty comfortable ride, and it got into the gear I had selected very quickly. The overall ride comfort for the bike especially if you're kind of cruising around. Due to its bigger size, I think it kind of adds to that kind of slow cruise experience. When you're just riding around slowly, it does feel nice. You feel like you have pretty good control of the bike. It's only when you slow down and come to slower speeds, you really start to feel that weight a little bit more, and the bike feels a little bit sluggish. But for cruising around at lower speeds, it felt really nice. Testing the bike on rougher terrain was a fun and interesting experience. The rear suspension on the seat definitely helps, but as I said earlier, I think actual rear suspension would help a lot more. You don't really have a lot of trouble, and because the suspension is directly underneath you, you find your body kind of does move a bit more with the suspension, and that and the kind of weightiness of the bike probably doesn't make it the best off-road vehicle. But the fatter tires, I do think, absorb some of that impact, and it's definitely not uncomfortable to ride off-road. I would say it's probably an average performer on off-road, but its power from throttle and pedal assist is enough to get you through some slightly stickier situations when you're off-road if you need some power to help you out. But the pedal assist does take a little while to kick in sometimes. This is the problem I find on a lot of electric bikes, is you kind of start to pedal, the bike will detect your pedaling, it will kick in and try and get you up to a set speed, and it just kind of feels very analog. It feels a little bit slow, a little bit delayed. So this is why I always enable throttle starts, because you just get a lot more finite control. It's a little bit more difficult to do because a lot of these throttles aren't super sensitive. So if you only want a little bit of power, you can turn the half throttle slowly and you won't get the full power, and you can kind of gradually ramp up. But it doesn't really have a lot of travel, and it's quite a soft feeling throttle, so it's a little bit difficult to kind of feather in the power. You kind of have to get used to it a little bit, but it is doable, and it's the way I prefer to ride, to have power on demand, and then when you want to, just cycle with the pedal assist off. When it comes to the ride comfort of this bike and overall feel and quality, none of the components feel really cheap. The bike seat feels really nice and comfortable. The hydraulic brakes feel really sturdy, and I did trust them when I was going quite fast. But when it comes to long-term use, that will be something we'll have to talk about further down the road. I did ask ENGWE about the battery cells used in this device. They wouldn't tell me which cells are actually being used, only to say they are high quality. But you'll see I got 16.3 miles on this, and I had 2 bars showing and 1 bar on the actual battery. I think this is pretty impressive when you consider that about 80% of the time I was riding during this range, it was off-road. I was using a ton of throttle and not really trying to preserve any battery life. So considering this is worst case scenario, I was quite impressed with the range, but there are other reviews out there where you can see more conservative range tests. Here I'm going to show you some extra features of this bike. So if you hold the plus and minus button, you'll come to this first screen. You then need to hit the selection key, and you'll see the bottom is now selected, and you can change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. This will be in kilometers per hour by default. You can then hit the selection button to confirm that. If you go up to program 6, you can then set the max speed. So here you can unlock the maximum speed this bike is able to go. Once you've done that, again, you hit the selection key and you then hold it to save the settings and go back to the default screen. If you want to unlock the throttle on this bike, you'll need to turn off the bike first. You then need to hold the throttle and the brake at the same time, turn on the display, and when it's fully powered on, hold the controls for at least 10 seconds. One main commonality I find between some of the electric bikes that I've tested is they often use a very similar control scheme, and their menu setup is often the same too, with this plus and minus system that they use. I would like to see some better customization, maybe some Wi-Fi connectivity so you can connect to your phone using an app and maybe customize some settings that way, and just a generally better UI loadout, maybe a touchscreen, although that's not necessarily needed, but these small details can separate you from other e-bikes on the market. I would also like to see a more reliable way of showing your battery status. Now, I'm not an expert on batteries, so I don't know how complicated this is to do. I know there is some guesswork involved, but often when you're riding this bike, it will show you have 3 bars of battery. It may go down to 2 and 1, and then it'll go back up again. So it can be a little bit difficult to judge your range at times. In addition to this, I feel like ENGWE should have included a pump for the tires for this product, as it didn't come with one, but luckily I had one already, which I was able to make the tires to the correct pressure. And I also think the addition of a phone holder and a way to charge your phone would be a nice additional extra. It's of course not a necessity on a bike like this, but it has come bundled on electric bikes that I've used before, and I think it's a nice extra feature. Overall, I think this is a good quality product that comes in at a respectable price, but I am pretty new to reviewing electric bikes, so if there's anything you feel I missed or anything I should add in my next electric bike review or some feedback, please let me know down below. As always, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more, and of course I will see you in the next one.
Let me show you what I